She likes the site. Clear and concise.
No, I mean, I know they don't care about the personal. Can't see the audience.
Or at least the doors, it's like someone's coming through, but.
Spread out all the creation.
This is with anticipation that they are.
I saw your neighbor got the beautification award, Reed. Just a couple houses up here. Yeah. I saw that one, like a lime tree, almost hanging on the ground.
Okay. 6:00, are we all ready to go? Call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Ms. Stone?
Here.
Mr. Lee?
Here.
Ms. Ramsey? Here. Mr. Costadonis?
Here.
Mr. Beaumont?
Here.
Mr. Pastelakis? Ms. Register? Here. Mr. Phillips?
Here.
Chairman Webster?
Here. Approval of meeting of the minutes for July 10, 2013 meeting. Do we have a motion?
Move approval.
All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes unanimously. Public comments. John?
John Nicholson, 413 North Grandview. Next month, I think it's going to be 5 years since you lost the project manager for Beachside, Main Street CRA. I still ask you that we need one. Two, that we are paying disproportionately for staff because the other CRAs can't afford it. You are paying more for all staff time. I think you got 4 hours out of Jason, and it was $2,000 an hour that you were paying Jason for those 4 hours. The balance of funding is not appropriate. You get a lawyer for $16,000; they get a lawyer for $9,000. You get Jeannie in the office for $27,000. Downtown pays $9,000. It's just not proportionate. You really should look into that. With that money, you could get your project manager. Secondly, planters on Main Street, if you've noticed, over half of them are empty. If you go down Beach Street, all of those are full. The ones on Beach Street are full year-round. Your guys, I'd say half the year, your planters are empty or in disrepair. 2, painting on the railing. It's been 5 months. I was told that Beach Street had the priority. So during our tourist season, those peelings got to be about this long, extremely noticeable. They may start painting after tourist season. There's only about 3 more days of tourist season. Lighting, I would ask you to look at lighting everywhere. There are LED lighting. There are turtle-friendly lightings. We can light up Aura Street Park breakers. There's time to relook at the neon lighting down Main Street. Remember, years and years ago, we curbed and cut back on lighting. We need to look at that again so that Main Street is appealing and desirable. And lastly, the mix and match repairs. When the city goes out to repair the pavers, they may be all burgundy and the city puts in pink and gray. They don't match. When they repaired the planters in front of the Hilton, they ended up these cream-colored planters with 2 brown replacement parts. We're doing that all over the core CRA area where our tourists are walking through. When they pressure clean the boardwalk, they don't pressure clean the planters, the garbage cans or the benches. You end up with ice cream. There's one that's been sitting there for 7 days. Somebody put their ice cream cone down. I picked up the cone, but I'm not picking up the ice cream, and it's sitting there. So anybody sitting on that would then ruin their clothing. So I'm asking you to look at the appearance of our tourist area. There's a lot we can do that does not cost a lot of money. It's just care. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Any other public comments? All right, moving on. Number 5, DEV 2013-050, rezoning planned commercial development, First Amendment for the Daytona Beach Convention Hotel and Condominiums. Rob Merrill's going to present. Reed, do you have any comments first?
Yeah, just a short introduction, and that is to let you know that as we start here, this is about a parking garage that we've already talked about the last time we went through this back in January, and the expectation through the Planning Board and the City Commission approvals was there would be some type of parking on the other side of Atlantic Avenue from the hotel and the condo project. They can explain why the changes, but I would want to mention that our formal review is really with the hotel in terms of our comments and for the Planning Board. The hotel is really not the subject tonight of the changes in the design that you approved before, so we're really, as a courtesy, offering our comments to the Planning Board in terms of what it looks like, because it's all part of one unified project. So that's how we're going to present to the Planning Board is that if we have any additional concerns or comments, recommendations, can pass them along. We're not doing it in a formal sense.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you. Rob?
Hey everybody, Rob Merrill for the record with Cobb Cole, here for the applicant tonight, Proto Group. You guys have had a complete presentation of this project months ago, and this is simply, as Reed said, an addition of a parking structure on the other side of A1A. We didn't have this property at the time, or we would have done this all at one time. It actually happened. We were able to acquire the property late in the process, so we knew we were going to have to come back through this and see you all again. And I think the reason why, I'm not sure how clear I was about what Reed just said, but the reason why, do you guys have this site plan? The reason why, if you'll look at that, the reason why we're here as a courtesy, as Reed said, is because this parking structure is on the north side of Oak Ridge, so it's outside the redevelopment area, much like the condominium tower was. But it's all part and parcel of the same project, so we thought we ought to bring it to you guys and get your thoughts on it. I can tell you that I'm going to introduce Brian Fredley to get up and tell you about his great work that I think this represents. But this is probably one of the nicest parking garages I've ever seen. So I assume it's going to be on the front of some Architectural Digest magazine or something at some point. So with that, I'll offer myself to answer any questions you have about the process that we're going through, which is simply an amendment to what you already approved or recommended approval for, to add a parking structure. You might remember that originally we had our architects from Atlanta had an idea, and we had a concept for doing robotic parking, which involved a lot less space. So we had to expand the parking somewhat for the condominium project that's under the condo tower on the north side of Oak Ridge, in order to make room for the more traditional, conventional parking. At the same time, we took the hotel parking and we moved it to across the street. So there is that division now, whereas before it was all mixed together in the robotic. And so I thought that was an interesting thing that we've never seen in Daytona Beach, but we're not going to see it for now. So we're going back to the drawing board with conventional. But I think you're going to find the structure itself, which is really what we're here to show you tonight, to be interesting and very attractive. So hopefully we'll get your endorsement and recommendation for approval. With that, Brian, I'll let you walk through. We've got a slideshow that Brian's going to give you.
Brian Fredley, BPF Design. We're the architects on the parking garage. We're working in conjunction with the architects for the resort to try to marry these two buildings together so that they work as one team. Just to follow up a little bit on how we got here. We had all the parking across the street at the resort. This property that's sitting vacant came available. The idea was to take some of the parking out of that resort and putting in this parking garage. The garage is going to be a valet parking garage for the resort, and you won't have people necessarily going and parking their own cars there. The valets will be parking the garage. How do I do the slide? All right. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
Accelerated version.
This way? Okay. So this is the view from the corner looking northwest from the southeast corner. This would be the Oak Ridge and A1A view of the building. It has an arcade feature, which is that porch feature on the corner of the building that matches the resort across the street. Tropical landscape, trying to break up the parking decks with this louvered grill tower system that we have corner and center towers on each of the elevations that break up the mass of the building and help screen the cars along with the landscape. That's the same view, more looking down Oak Ridge. This project expanded from being just on the beach side of A1A to becoming almost a renovation of Oak Ridge itself. And that's the exciting part of this project, that Oak Ridge is now part of the project, more so than it was before. This is the view from A1A looking west from the east facade. Again, you can see the arcade. The idea behind it was to create a mixed-use looking project, something where we had almost retail on the first floor with storefronts on the A1A side, and as if the resort has that across the street, where they've got their restaurant and cafes and things like that that are street side, and then they've got their rooms and, you know, the hotel functions above that.
Is there actually retail, or is it just an appearance?
Just an appearance, yeah,
Okay.
just an appearance.
Now, let's assume that the valets go on strike, and people have to go over and get their own. Is it structured like a regular parking garage, so if people have to go get their own and there's a valet issue and such, they can get their own vehicles out?
They can, they'll be issued a card, an access card. The elevators and stairs will be
It's coded?
on access control only, so we don't get, you know, just anybody walking off the street, going up in the elevators or going up into the stairwells.
Is it otherwise secured so that your street people don't go in there and spend the night and such?
Yeah, we're gonna have cameras, and we have that shown on the floor plan. We're gonna have security cameras that are gonna be monitored, with the security, staff at the resort. So just like the hotel will have security, they'll be monitoring the garage, all angles, all decks of the parking structure. We don't wanna have any problems, at the garage. We want it to be a safe place for the valets mostly, that are going in there, but any guests that would want to park their own car once they've valeted it once, so you've probably been to a resort
Okay,
like
so you
that.
okay, so it'll be combination really?
Combination once you have the card, yeah,
Okay.
once you have the card. So this is the view, along Grandview, and it shows the southern or southwestern stair tower there. Lots of landscape, really blocking any views of any of the parked cars that are on the first and second level. And then, of course, you've got 42-inch precast elements, that won't allow you to see the cars from eye level for the third through sixth levels.
Is all the hotel parking in this facility then, none at the hotel?
No,
Other than
sir.
a little bit of surface or whatever?
Yeah, there's 520-something spaces on our side of the street where the garage is. We've got another 300 plus on the hotel side. We're going to show you some drawings of the hotel itself, and I'll show you where those cars are parked.
Are they for the hotel or the condo or?
The condos are under the condo tower, under
Right.
the condo tower, there's the condo parking, and then there's all of the guest parking for the hotel will be here.
Okay, that's
But
what I
there
was.
is still some parking, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, that's under the hotel itself. Right. I thought it was being loud enough. For the-
Yeah, gotcha, for the record. For the record, the answer is, this is the parking for the guests, for the hotel. The condo owners will have parking underneath their units in the tower on the north side. And then there's also some underground parking still under the hotel, which is going to be, I think, there's service vehicle access there, there's some employee parking, but this is the guests.
Okay, thank you.
Some of the other features are these cantilevered roofs, the exterior lighting, the colors of the building, the stone that we're going to use on the arcade is all going to match what's being done at the resort. So they're going to be kindred spirits, so to speak.
Has there been thought given to a walkover?
Uh,
I can just see this being a big issue with a lot of people crossing and back and forth. And
There was thought given to it. In fact, there's a provision, interestingly, that calls for it in the code that was waived as part of your approval originally. When we had parking on the other side of the street, we just didn't have a garage.
yeah, it was
And-
insignificant compared to.
Well, be that as it may, an elevated structure is not part of the proposal.
Yeah, I'll just speak to that a little bit. I don't know if you're familiar with Panama City and how they've got a bridge going over every half mile, 2 blocks. It's a little bit monotonous as far as the fabric of buildings on the street. I mean, again, I think this is going to be valet parking. I mean, we're going to have, professional car parkers, putting these cars over there, and valet guests are going to be going into the resort and enjoying their vacation.
Let me just say, it's a good question, Dan, you're raising. Let me just say that the owner is an operator of other hotels, as you're aware. Some of you, I think, have stayed at them. And he's confident that the valet parking is going to work, and that's how he does it everywhere else. There is going to be an option for a guest if they insist to park their own car. They have to leave that option open. But we're talking about people who are trained professionals doing this crossing, not every guest.
Okay. And what are the size of the parking spaces and such? Are they,
Yeah, they're standard.
what is, I mean, standard fits a car.
Yeah, I think,
What about all of our trucks? I mean, the parking garage that's across from Ocean Walk is a disaster, because they're standard parking spaces, and 2/3 of the vehicles in there exceed the size of what they're designed for. And that was a big issue we had when they were here with the robotic parking, was, and there was assurances that there were sufficient number of parking spaces for all the crew cab F-150s and Toyota Tundras and large vans and Suburbans and such that we get in this town.
right.
Well, like, I'm sorry, Paul Mumberger, Zip Cohen. Like we mentioned, this is gonna be managed. So we got big cars, we're gonna put big cars next to little cars. So it's not just gonna be self-parked. I mean, I think that's the minority of the parking is, every once in a while, you may have somebody self-parking this, but for the most part, the hotel's gonna be managing the parking. So we're gonna stack them and rack them, but they're gonna be responsible for the different scales of the different cars, the different.
Are all the parking spaces the standard size,
They're the standard valet size.
standard valet size? And is that different from a regular parking garage size
Yes, they are.
What size is it, Paul?
8.5.
versus what's
9.
normal?
It's a 6-inch difference.
We have some options. I'll show you those double stack spaces that, you know, if we had a long vehicle or something, plus we've got the top floor deck that, you know, they would have some options for dealing with special instances.
When was the last time you were in the Ocean Center parking garage?
I take my daughter to the movies almost every week.
Okay.
So, and I've got a Sequoia, and I park at that garage, and I've even tried to park it on those large vehicle parallel spaces, and they've put a little ticket saying I'm not large enough to be in the large vehicle parallel spaces. But it's tight, but you know, I don't have a problem with it, you know. That's a quirky garage, I think. You know, this is gonna be a lot more simpler. You're not gonna have the, you know, the double winding corkscrew traffic, you know, going against one another. I mean, this is,
Dead-end lanes and all
yeah,
that.
I mean,
It's
it's,
better design.
Take a lot.
No, I haven't done it. Yeah.
Okay, we just have to
The difference
understand.
is that's a public garage too. This is a managed, private structure.
Yep.
Context.
Let me show you a couple more. This is the view looking east down Oak Ridge. You know, what the kind of new boulevard would be like with all the tropical landscape on the left-hand side, garage on the left-hand side, and then you can see the new resort at the end as the, you know, as the kind of the destination of your view looking down Oak Ridge. Now here's the resort itself. This is a view of the North Tower, I believe.
Yes.
And you can see the arcade, which is the same porch arcade that we're using that has that porch element, glass above, the louver system, which that is their parking, you know, behind that louver system. Those are precast louvers that will screen their parking, the 300 spaces there, and will, you know, have almost a wood look. I mean, that's the idea behind it. And then match what we're doing across the street. Here's another view of really the whole project, the 3 towers together. And you can see on, you know, from going back to the parking garage, you can see the cantilevered roof fins on the north tower, on the left tower. You know, we're emulating a lot of that on our tower with our corner elements and whatnot. Pull these things together, knit them together. Is that it for what you have on the, okay. Yeah, I didn't know if you had the floor plans on there or not, but you have them in your packet, yeah. Any other questions? They're concrete, yeah, they're concrete. I mean, that's something that, that I asked and conferenced with the architect of the resort about. You know, would it be better to go with a aluminum powder-coated system? And they felt pretty confident that doing these louvers, they'll be 3 inches thick each one, and they'll be a foot deep, and they'll be done by a precaster, and it may be even a color-through product that they, yeah, yeah. So we're trying to think of, you know, the coastal, the corrosive, you know, environment, all the things so that this thing, you know, this project looks great for years to come. I mean, that's the whole idea behind it. The parking garage? Yeah, yeah, when you say 6 stories, it's 6 decks. I mean, it's a ground level deck and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but there's no roof over the 6th deck. So it kind of appears to be 5 with a roof. Yeah.
Which part?
Correct. Yeah.
Any questions or comments? Teresa?
This is one of the finest looking parking garages I've seen in some time, and I think it matches the caliber of the hotel that we looked at, I think in February.
I just wanted to make one final comment. I meant to say it earlier. Your staff has done we've been months in getting to you with this, so it's a result of a lot of input from your staff. It started off being a nice garage, but it's the Taj Mahal garage as a result of your staff's input, so I wanted to thank them on the record.
Just wanted to thank you for bringing it to us for input. Thanks.
Randy?
It looks great. Looks like Frank Lloyd Wright designed it. It's awesome.
Carrie?
Bike lane. I'm riding my bike. How do I get around? I know you're bringing it closer to the street. Is there still a good bike lane?
Currently, and we didn't get into the traffic discussion, but in order to get into the parking garage, there's a reverse lane that takes you across. And part of our discussion with DOT was that we would stripe some parking behind that reverse lane. And then on the other side, instead of doing striped parking, they said we had to have a bike lane. So we are showing a bike lane over there now. How far that's going to continue, we don't know yet. We're still trying to, as Brian had talked about, we're still trying to get some partnerships on the rest of Oak Ridge so that the rest of Oak Ridge, and I think we showed you at our first meeting a video. I don't know if you guys were all here, but we had a video down Oak Ridge what our concept was. That's not part of this PUD, but we're trying to get that done, and if that's the case, we would have a bike lane all the way from the bridge all the way down here. But currently, we can only be assured that we are going to have it for that one block. So I don't know what to tell you. We're still working on that.
Matt?
I think it was great. Well, Carrie kind of like got into what I was talking about. What I was thinking is, how are you? So are the cars going to come out back onto Oak Ridge between A1A and the beach, and then head back down Oak Ridge where it's one way now to get into the parking garage? How are you going to get vehicles into the garage, like traffic flow?
I'll try to hit it. There's what's going on here is we're looking for a permit from DOT to come in the opposite direction for a short period with a barrier.
So
And there's room to do this because we're restriping Oak Ridge as we talked about last time.
So where Oak Ridge now is 3 lanes, it's going to be restriped as 2 lanes.
Still going to be 3 lanes, but they're narrower. These lanes are gigantic in Oak Ridge, so we're going to try to make it more like Seabreeze, Timmy. So once we do that, there's going to be extra room. We're hoping that we're going to get some partnership with DOT and the county and maybe the city to go ahead and do the whole boulevard with extra parking and bike lanes and landscaping and hardscaping. And if we do that, that's going to be great. But even if we don't, the restriping will create some extra space where we can get another lane to go into the parking garage. So what the owner wants to be able to do is come straight across the intersection, go into the garage.
Okay, well, so like from Grandview West, it'll be 3 lanes and then it'll merge into 2 lanes?
There'll be parking on the.
All the way? Like, is that,
The idea is that the lane that has the opposing lane will continue as parking the rest of the way.
all the way down to Halifax?
Yes.
Okay.
We want to dress it up too, though. The parking itself will happen naturally as a result of the restriping, so it's not going to be a whole lot of extra
That's why I was
additional
just
cost.
wondering the traffic flow, and then, because it kind of gets a little.
And it'll be signed, so
especially
we're.
during season, it gets a little squirrely down there.
It's a good question. We're working through that with DOT. Our alternative plan is just for them to have to come out and hang a right on A1A, left on Seabreeze, and then Glenview, and come back around through. There's going to be another entrance on Glenview. Grandview, I meant to say.
It's Grandview.
Glenview's the other side. So there will be that option, and in fact, I think that's the way we would direct a self-parking hotel guest to do it. So there will be two ways in. If we don't get the DOT to approve the opposing lane, the Grandview entrance will be the only entrance.
Yeah, I mean, I come down that street every day, so there's 3 lanes going eastbound, and there's always some guy going the wrong way every day, pretty much. When I'm going to
So they're
work.
already doing it. We should.
Yeah,
Can
they're
you
just
come?
doing it.
Can you come to DOT with us in
Yeah.
DeLand? No. The truth is there will be the system set up so that there will be no way for somebody to get into that lane from the other way. There's going to be landscaping at the end of it with curbing and curbing all the way across here. So it's a
Oh, no,
dead
I'm
end.
talking about people driving south on Atlantic Avenue, turning right to go down Oak Ridge.
My point is, I think this will help that
Yeah.
because there won't be any way for them to do that anymore.
Right.
They'd be turning
They'll
into our
go down
garage.
proper
The good
traffic
and the
flow
good
there.
news is,
Yeah.
one of the things the staff required us to do is if somebody does make that mistake, we had to move our gate over to the actual garage, and so we have surface parking where they've got a way out onto Grandview.
And then, as far as the comment that was made before about Panama City, I've been there and I know what you're talking about, all the walkways there. Also, if you go to Myrtle Beach, all the big complexes there that are right on the water, all their parking for their guests are across the street, and there's like no walkovers there. And they're, I don't know any that are valet. You know, you go in, you check in, you unload your bags, you drive across the street, and you park your car. So, but the security thing's a big thing because I know what happens in the garage behind me. So yeah. So, but as far as the looks of it, it looks like it belongs in Winter Park. Nothing that we've ever seen.
We want to be like
job.
Winter Park. We're the beachside Winter Park.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Coastal.
You and I'll talk in 10 years.
My primary concern is the size of those parking spaces, okay? It's not a pure valet. You're gonna have the hotel residents going over and getting their cars and going to dinner and coming back and parking and doing that kind of thing. It's just Daytona Beach. We're kind of a self-service, type. We're not used to valet service, okay? So, I think it's a mistake to have too much emphasis inside the garage as though we're operated as a valet garage. I think you need to have a minimum of a standard 9-foot space for half, and I think you need to have half of them even bigger and deep enough to accommodate the trucks and everything that we see so often, so we don't have vehicles sitting in, with the trailer hitch sticking out there another 8 inches, so you barely have enough room to get by, so we don't have another Ocean Center type parking garage situation. I just think it's gonna end up being partially used, substantially used, maybe not a majority, but a substantial use by the guests themselves going in and out, and they need to be able to get in and out, and they need to park without creating a problem. And so I think those parking spaces are too small. You may be able to use half of them as your valet size, but at least half need to be bigger and able to accommodate the large trucks and such that we see too often here. That's my concern about it. I actually think a walkover would be good since you have such a huge facility, and one good accident, that walkover would be paid for, with one person getting run over or something, but because I know there's gonna be families toting all their bags out to their vehicle and loading them up over there because they don't wanna wait that 5 minutes for the valet to show up with their vehicle. So, for what it's worth, my comments, since that's really what we're supposed to be doing is providing comments, is that you have too heavy a focus on the valet parking side of it. You don't accommodate the guests actually using it themselves, and you don't have large enough spaces for the pickup trucks and such that we see too often.
Okay.
Can I ask a couple of questions? And because I'm not in the tourist business at all, I don't know about the hotel business, but do we see a lot of people that are, I guess, customers who would be using this hotel? Are most of them are going to be from out of town, aren't they? So I'm thinking that maybe the use of this parking garage is going to be completely different than the one on Ocean, for the Ocean Walk, because Ocean Walk facilitates the Daytonians and the people, and I say that if that's even a word. I think I just did a George Bush there. But and the people around, but I'm just bringing this up just as a thought. But maybe that this facility, this parking garage, isn't going to have to deal with a lot of the issues of the locals parking in there, because they're not going to be parking in there.
It's not a public garage.
Right.
That is
So
the
I'm
difference.
thinking that the majority of the people that are going to be parking there are going to be people that are using the facilities like the convention center. They're going to be from out of town. A lot of them are going to be in rental cars, I would presume, or if they traveled to get here. I don't know. I just think this, because of the setup the way that it is, that I think there would be a lot of people using the valet service, because they're not going to be just coming. The majority of them aren't going to be coming and going.
Have you looked during a bike week event, during a race week event, and see
sure.
what everybody's driving?
Matt,
We're
we're
not driving rental cars that are,
No, I'm not.
compacts. We've,
I understand that, but I don't think that's going to be your norm. I live on Beachside, and I don't see. And I'm not trying to be argumentative, and I'm just raising a thought. I'm not. I'm not an expert in this.
The only
That's fine.
expert in the room isn't here, and that's our client.
Yeah.
And they're telling us this is the way they want to conduct their business. This is one of those things where I'm with you, Dan. I've had very big vehicles as well, and it's a pain when you go to an 8.5 versus a 9. I agree. You got to work your way in a little harder. But if a valet's parking it, they're going to figure out how to park the little ones next to the big ones, just like Paul said. That's the way we want to do business. These guys are in the business. Now, if we were talking about a health safety thing or something that you needed to be concerned about a valet as well as the customer itself, I'm with you. But we're not. This is what the business person wants to do. They want to valet park this thing. That's how they run their hotels. And it's one of those things where I question, is this the place for government to come in and say, no, we're going to let you run your business that way? I don't think so. I think this is, I appreciate what you're saying. And I personally agree with you in the public parking situation where it's me doing the parking. But that's what these guys are trying to do.
but there's going to be public parking there.
They will be allowed to self-park, but what he tells me is
They
that's
will-
not the way he runs their business.
Suzanne, they will be parking over there. When you go to stay at that hotel, you check
You have the
in,
option.
You check in, and you can, and then they valet park it for you while you check in, and then they give you a card. You can go over and get your own car, and you leave and go to dinner or whatever, and you come back and you park again.
I have a question.
But before you ask, can I say one thing? But the question that you're raising is, does the government want to protect the person who chooses to not to valet so that they have an easy way in and out of their parking spot without any tight fit? That's the question. I'm sorry.
Well, no, what,
I have a question. And the people that park in that garage are only people who are guests staying in the hotel.
Correct.
It is a private
Private garage.
for their private guests. I don't see that the city of Daytona Beach and any government or any board has anything to say about how those cars are parked or laid out in that garage. This is a private business. And I don't think we have a say in it.
well, with all due respect, we have a say in a lot of things that private businesses do. My point is that Daytona is a bit unique from going to Miami or New York City or the other cities. We have a different clientele a good part of the year in Daytona Beach. Our clientele drive, for the most part, a larger vehicle. They drive the Suburbans, the F-150s, the big Tundras and such. And so therefore, they need a place to put those. And during a bike week event, during a race event, during bike week, we got to find room for all the trailers too, okay? So they may end up on the top, I don't know, they may end up in another lot over at the Sunbank or something, and that's another issue, but I'm not
Right.
trying to address that. What I'm just trying to say is, I think it's a mistake not to accommodate the fact that you're going to have residents, your guests coming in with those large vehicles, and they're going to try and park those in an 8.5-foot spot, and you all know that the first spot they see is the one they want to try and park in instead of going up a few levels. It's just, I'm just trying to say, from a prudent business perspective, I really hope that they've taken that into consideration, because our vehicles are a whole lot bigger than they are in most places.
Well, Dan, I appreciate what you're saying. I'm not trying to be argumentative, but I would point out to you that these folks are in this business. They've done it elsewhere. They've got parking structures associated with other convention hotels that they own of similar size. So they know what they're doing, number one. Number two, there are other options. When the bike trailers come to town, they are going to have to deal with leasing some of the SunTrust or some. We know that the asphalt's out there, so it can be done. I'm afraid if we try to solve all the world's problems with this one, I don't want to kill it. I mean, and I don't even want to make a bad impression on the owners that we're trying to hammer them on something that they already know how to do. So I would suggest to you that the practical result of pressing that issue is there are going to be fewer spots. And what they've said is, we want this number of spots. We think this is what we want to run this thing, and we're willing to take 6 inches less on the width and do valet only, with giving them an option, but strongly encouraging them not to. And if that's the way they want to do it, and they've done it elsewhere, God bless them. I think we should tell them, we caution you that 8.5's too narrow for the hillbillies that live around here. But you guys are, doing this somewhere else, good luck. I mean, that's the message I'd like to give to them, as opposed to, we don't like this thing because the 6-inch wider, narrower parking spots. Just my thought.
We're here for our input and our suggestions and what we think will make it better for them and better for the community.
And I promise you they're going to hear about this.
And I appreciate it. So, on the record, my suggestion, as I had concerns about the robotic parking months ago.
Oh, no, we brought that to them, and here we are.
Yeah. So.
It's gone. See? So what I'm worried is you start waving that magic wand, next thing you know, I'm back here in 3 or 4 months
How
now.
much money we saved them by getting rid of the
Right.
robotic parking.
Buying more property and,
So, anyways, that's my concern, is the size of the parking spaces. I really think there should be consideration with respect to that. Other than that, I think it's fantastic. I'm so pleased to see them doing it. I think they're gonna have a challenge with the right turn off of South Atlantic onto Oak Ridge. But you say they have made an accommodation that allows, if somebody, and it's gonna happen a dozen times a day,
they can get on Grandview.
they can go right through without having to deal with gates and exit on Grandview. Is that
Yes,
correct?
exactly.
Okay. That was a big concern I had, so that's helpful. So, okay. We appreciate it very much. Any last comments, anybody?
I have a question. Did you consider, what do they call that? An over,
The walkover.
walkover?
We talked about that a few minutes ago.
I know, but I know, but
We did. And again, if this was a public parking garage like Ocean Walk, I think it'd be a different consideration.
oh, okay.
I don't know if it's worth it or not, but Brian, you might just, in the design, is take into consideration if they have to do a crossover at some point, you've kind of pre-planned it in somehow. Just in the thought process, because I could see where they might decide a few years down the road, we really should put something over here.
Timmy's laughing because he remembers when I was trying to figure out where that thing was going to land on Ocean Walk, and nobody wanted it to land on their property. Right.
Well, I know, I was like, Brian loved to bill him for it.
Yeah.
Well, we've got a solution if they want to do that.
Okay, very good.
Another point we'll make
Bree,
note
do
of.
we need to take any formal action other than our comments that we've been making?
Well, you might want to take some public input.
Oh, yeah, I can
comment.
write that down, because I always forget about
So
doing
it's
that.
just a little detail.
Thank you very much. Do we have any public that would like to make a comment? Yes, ma'am. Name and address, please.
Good evening, Chairman. My name is Paulita Cunded, 430 North Atlantic, Sea Dunes Motel, kind of like right in the center of this particular project.
Ground zero.
Ground zero. Couple of things. I have not actually seen the plans of this project. It was thrown up quickly, and I don't know where the access is. This is the first time I've heard it, that it's going to be 300-plus off-site parking spaces. I know initially when they came to you for a recommendation for the PUD, they were talking about having public access to a lot of some of those parking spaces. Exactly where are the parking spaces on the property that the 577, I think, that they were including, and then I guess it's 300-plus off-site. Just like to know that. The second thing is, I'm really just learning tonight about the parking is going to be going against traffic on the northern lane of Oak Ridge going up, which I feel will really impact that area. I understand some people have kind of made that turn anyway, and, there's been a lot of problems. For the life of me, I just can't believe DOT will approve something like that. And I would be against that because I think it would negatively impact us on our corner there with cars being backed up, coming into 2 lanes. If they're crossing over going to their side, it's going to continually back up along the street there because you're not going to have a center lane going right to that, or a left lane going off to North Atlantic. And I see some real significant problems there impacting traffic. So I don't know how the actual ingress of that is. Is there a plan that I could look at as a
Paulina,
public?
if you want to
Sure.
look here, there's actually, I believe, 2 entrances. One is, there's this proposed lane here that's all blocked off from the traffic lanes that would go the reverse direction with an entrance into here. There's also another entrance off of Grandview. So they've got dual entrances into the parking garage.
So they're hoping to get DOT to allow them to go against
Yes.
traffic right there, make 3 lanes into 2,
Yes.
and then.
No, there will still be 3 lanes, I believe, but they'll,
What they're talking about is doing 2 lanes all the way up with a wider lanes, but parking all along the north side.
okay.
Am I correct?
Still 3 lanes.
Is it 2 lanes or 3?
They're narrowing the lanes, like I said.
Well, I mean, 2 lanes,
But-
2 lanes going east with the 1 lane.
No, 3 lanes going east.
Yeah, there's still 3 lanes going eastbound.
We're just narrower lanes. The lanes are so wide now, we have room to make 3 lanes out of 3 and still have room for parking.
Fourth lane?
Absolutely. We showed you those plans last time. Paulie, we can do it again with you. We went through this ad nauseum.
I've never seen this.
No, the plan for Oak Ridge has been the same since the beginning, which is that we're talking to DOT about narrowing the lanes to the same width as Seabreeze to create a more pedestrian type of road there. And same number of lanes creates a whole new lane for parking.
So what they're gonna try to do is make them, I still don't.
And so if you were to, let me just.
Living in that area.
Paulina, that's actually for another day, and you can deal with DOT on that. Because DOT's gonna have huge issues with that.
Yeah.
So you need to get in the loop.
We're close again. Here's the thing, just so you see the geographics of it, the opposing lane, Paul, help me out here. The opposing lane right here, if you continue, down here, there's parking, where that is.
So it's gonna stop at Grandview?
No, it goes all the way down.
We're gonna go all the way down. We're gonna go all the way to the bridge with it.
What they're doing is
So
they're,
it's gonna be really tight in that area, because if you're gonna make it like Seabreeze, where you have 2 tight lanes and then the parking. and
It's
then
gonna be like
additionally-
Seabreeze.
there's only parking on one
If
side.
you don't like Seabreeze, you're not gonna like this.
Well, I'm just,
We like
I don't
Seabreeze.
know how wide
I did too.
Seabreeze is versus how wide Oak Ridge is.
I mean, Oak Ridge is wider, but at the same time, there'll only be parking on one side.
So how do they access this?
They'll come out of here.
They'll come out of here,
and go
cross
straight down this
over
median
and do that, or they have to come out of here,
and turn right.
come this way and then come around.
So
and-
Do you
they'll
need a
have
vote?
a traffic signal here going straight up, so this could be backed up with parking going into the
I'm thinking
valet,
about a vote.
which means
Except
where
that,
our property is,
Paulina,
they back up.
if this is backing up,
Yeah.
I don't think I think what they'll do is they'll come around this way, as opposed to allowing a backup to occur. Practically speaking, that's how it would function. They're not gonna sit there and go, we need to wait for all of this to clear through before we go, when we can just make a right turn, go around the block and
But I
get in.
think a majority is gonna be the valet parking, so the majority of it's gonna be the valeters who are gonna be systematically getting those cars in and out.
Initially, when this was proposed, I thought there was going to be some public parking. It was going to be available for public parking. Will there still be public parking available on the site or off the site?
We just showed you what was along the street that we're creating.
So only the street parking would be the public parking to this.
There's never been any public parking inside of any structure, either on the east side or the west side of anyone ASD proposed.
As it's being proposed now. But initially, I remember that it was discussed that there was going to be public parking and anyone was going to be able to be there and access the restaurants and what have you. But that has changed, apparently.
Well, except anybody coming there for the facility is
For
no
the-
longer deemed public, they're allowed to use the parking facilities they have.
Oh, okay. So they're allowed to use
the valet, I think,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, so if you would go there for let's say there's a restaurant there, you would go in, just like if.
So
you're
you
gonna
are
go-
allowed
like
to
you're
use it
gonna
as
go to Hyde
public?
Park. Let's
Because
say
I
you
thought
go
it
to-
was just for the hotel. All right,
Yeah.
for the guests alone.
Yeah, I mean,
All
well,
right.
yeah, like if you go to Hyde Park, you pull in, you valet, you have your dinner, and then afterwards
Same kind of setup. Okay, and the 577 parking spaces, we've added 300, we've eliminated the robotic. How many extra parking spaces has that added?
Actually, it did. Did it add spaces, or wasn't there an increase of room?
There's, previously, we had we were gonna do about 100 spaces off-site.
Okay.
And now we're doing the parking garage. Parking garage has just over 500 spaces, and those are for the hotel. The condominium spaces and a handful of other hotel spaces are on the other side, just under 300. Just to simplify this. 500 parking garage, just under 300 on site.
So 800.
So about 810 spaces we are providing.
And what was proposed before?
727.
So we've added about 75 more parking spaces. And we were worried about the staff because I remember you were saying that you were going to have about 150 for staff.
This meets code specifically, just actually
We asked for a waiver.
4 spaces over code. So before we were under code by 100 spaces, now we're over code by 4 spaces.
I guess I'll reserve a lot of my objections for DOT. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Paulita. Any other public comments? John?
John Nicholson, 413 North Grandview Avenue. I wish the public had a right to see what you were talking about up there. Visually, I live a block from there, so I'm familiar with this intersection. I can't imagine, there is a sign at that intersection if you're heading north on A1A that says no left turn, no U-turns, all right? The people that are going to the hotel who are going to be guests then will be able to make a left-hand turn when nobody else is going to make a left-hand turn to go into this new counterflow parking lane that gets into the hotel. Because if they see that they're allowed to do this, all right, their valet parking is doing this all the time, why can't they do it? Do you understand what I'm saying? They see people going down that all the time, and they are guests of this hotel, and they are parking in their parking garage. Why can't they also go where the valet goes, if you understand what I'm talking about? Monkey see, monkey do. Secondly, my main objection is that we are now adding a 5th block of A1A with a parking facade. We've gone, Anderson may or may not put a parking garage on A1A. The Hilton has parking garages on 2 blocks of A1A. Ocean Walk has 2 parking garages on A1A. The Plaza has parking garages on A1A. Now we're putting a parking garage across the street. I understand that we have, for the last 30 years, encouraged parking garages across the street. But what we had hoped for was that in the future, that we would put businesses on the ground floor. We used to be a tourist town in which tourists would get out and walk. Timmy, you're familiar with tourists just walking up and down that area from Seabreeze to Main Street. They no longer go south of Main Street, but between that area, they are constantly on the street. Evelyn Fine from the HOV board says tourists like to do one of 3 things: go to the beach, shop, or go to restaurants. They walk. Once they're there, they walk. When we have all of the guests at the hotel, the Hilton, all the conventions, they walk. What we're creating is an area in which nothing happens. We don't want 5 blocks on our core tourist area in which nothing happens. You're also doing that to Oak Ridge. If you go west from Oak Ridge, you have the back of this parking garage, nothing's happening. You have the bank, which is the back of the bank, another block, nothing happened. Then you have the church and the law office, the back of both of them, nothing happened. So you've got 4 blocks in a row on Oak Ridge with nothing happening. Likewise, across the street, if anything gets built, it's too narrow of an area, and if they do build, they have to go into the neighborhood and bulldoze some of the houses in order to build something on Oak Ridge. So we're creating a dead zone here, and we've got to be careful of that. Lastly, Hilton does okay with their parking. They do valet parking. They do that little loop. If you're familiar with the Hilton parking lot, they can't get from their front door to that lot. They've got to do the circuitous route. I'm asking you to talk about whether you want that counterflow, crazy little abutment there on Oak Ridge, or allow them to do what Hilton is doing. Hilton is doing quite well with that, and I ask you not to screw up what we've got already by having that really strange lane change on Oak Ridge. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Any other public comments? Yes, sir.
Michael Cundit, 430 North Atlantic Avenue, Daytona Beach, Florida, Sea Dunes. If this DOT request is not approved, then all the 500-plus cars that are going to go into this parking garage on the west side of A1A are going to make a right off of Oak Ridge, head north, get over into the inside lane, then get over into the turn lane to go on Seabreeze, then go around the block. Seabreeze Boulevard is a major artery that has a bridge attached, unlike the Hilton where you go on Earl Street and kind of go around, or Oak Ridge, Aura Street. So does anybody have a problem with that? I see a major issue. I don't believe DOT is going to approve this counter lane. I see that as pie in the sky. I see a major problem at Seabreeze. I see a major congestion at Oak Ridge and Atlantic. Does anybody see that? It's clear as day to me. I grew up there. I watch the traffic at the peak times. We run a business on the corner. I see it absolutely not happening. But I wish you would take it into consideration. I know you're not a governing body. You make comments, but I just don't see it. Also, your clients have never proven that they've built anything with any parking garages. You say it, but you've never proved it. They're a partnership with someone in Palm Coast with the Days Inn, but they have never proven they've built the first thing anywhere in this country that has a parking garage or anywhere else. If you can show that, that would be interesting. But all I hear is talk from you. You've never proven it to anybody in Daytona Beach.
Thank you.
Can I respond?
I don't think you need to, Rob. Any other public comments? All right. Have we done what we need to do, Reed, or?
Well, I just want to go back and on one thing, and that is to make sure that you know that, for the record, that we do have a new set of elevations. There were some revisions that were done to what you had in the packet, so they're minor. If you want any explanation, I'm sure the applicant can give that to you. The other thing is that August 22nd, next week, the planning board will be having this on their agenda for their consideration. So we'll be updating them about this meeting at that time with any comments that came out of the meeting.
Okay. One last.
Let me just say that when he says the elevations, the color renderings that you saw accurately reflect the current version. We made a mistake when we sent over a couple days ago the actual black and white two-dimensional ones, and there were a couple of things that Tom Whitenauer and Brian had changed. I think one of the columns moved a little bit or something. They're very minor, and some of the safety things that Brian was talking about with the cameras and such were added to the plans. So those are the only changes. You wouldn't have noticed them, I don't think, unless you were with a microscope. But the color renderings, the three-dimensional renderings, are current. So just so you don't think we're doing a quick one on you here.
Thank you, Rob.
And we did put that in the planning packet today, so that will go out to the planning board with those revisions.
Okay. Well set then? Good. Redevelopment projects update.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you all for coming.
Unless you have any questions, I just wanted to make sure you knew that there was action taken to hire an E-zone consultant. I put the information in your packet for you. Now that helps. Yeah, we need more resources, and that's good for Main Street that we have someone who will help. So.
Is that the councilman that you're talking about?
Yes.
Are we going to have any public participation with Mr. Daniels, or may we just chat with him on our own at our? Is he supposed to have any interaction with us as a board, or is it just more of a?
He's
city manager.
Basically
interface?
hired to report directly to the city manager, and.
We can yell at him as much as we want.
I think as a county councilman, he is available to the public. Have at it. Hard Rock, the hotel concept, was supposed to be scheduled originally for this meeting. And they put it off, and I just want to make sure everyone understands that there's no issues going on there. They simply wanted to have more time to do their design. So if anyone's asking, that's why.
I have a question about that. I have heard from several people over the past 2 weeks that the Hard Rock's not going to really be built here.
Well, there's no indication of that. They continue to be working on it and have it on their website. They're committed to coming here as far as we know.
Okay.
So we stay very positive that that's all moving forward. It's been our discussion.
That's good to hear. Thank you.
Yes. The next item I wanted to cover was the text amendment, because we were anticipating we would come back and have something more formal. Here's what's happened. In the last month, we have been working with Clarion on that land development code rewrite. And we're at the point where it's going through the formal review. This has to then come back through the process with the planning board and the city commission. We're almost there. So we are not moving any text amendments forward from staff. Now, if somebody else wants to submit a text amendment and pay for the publications and everything else, certainly there's a right to do that. There's due process. But from staff standpoint, our plan is to do this, to take what we have now and look at how that can fit into and fold into the land development code when we get it back and have that next review process in the fall. We'll look at how that wording can be placed in there as an amendment. It's just we're kind of spinning our wheels here by trying to put it into the current code, because we're
So Reed, just for
done with
clarification, you're talking about the text amendment listed in bullet point number 4, not 3, correct?
I don't have it in front of me.
Bullet point 3 is talking about text amendment for rezoning of Sunoco. 4 is talking about the
Right.
Main Street. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that, Dustin. That's where we're going to come back with that. Sunoco is going forward. There's been no issues coming up through the process, so they've, as you've seen, made the changes with design. We seem to have everybody that was involved in that process from the neighborhood, and Sunoco has worked everything out. So we expect that to hopefully get approved next week. Okay. The last thing is, today we had some of the information brought to staff from CPH on the ISB streetscape. We've also been wrapping up the portion that goes from downtown all the way to Nova. So Nova, all the way to the ocean, we now have a good handle on getting some final design concepts so that we can get this out to you as soon as it's possible. I don't know if it's going to be next month, but I'm feeling much more confident that we have some designs worked out now that will be workable. And we'll still have to work with DOT on some of the issues, but the concept's coming together. So that's important. And when we talked about Oak Ridge earlier and the idea that can be upgraded, there's a lot of money involved here, and DOT doesn't have Oak Ridge on their list for any improvements right now. So the efforts are ongoing with the developer to do some work with DOT to see if there's some monies that can be obtained to make something happen on Oak Ridge. Our effort as a city is focused on ISB, getting grants, trying to put that project all together. We've, as you know, been working on Orange Avenue and try to get that done. Yeah, the Orange Avenue, I don't think I have a date yet for the start. There's still a couple issues they're working through but we're getting pretty close. You know, I think we're now starting to focus in on the ISB project and how that's going to work, because, you know, as we go forward here, we're going to have the questions coming up about, okay, you're closing this street or doing construction here, you're doing construction there. How's this all going to tie together? And I'd be as interested as any of you to see how each year we're going to do what we have to do to get traffic from A to B and make this all happen so that businesses are in business and staying in business, and people know how to get from one place to the next. So hopefully we'll be doing a lot better job with signage. Yeah, and speaking of, and that was the last thing. That was kind of a temporary thing. We thought we would at least through the middle of the tourist season to the end, put these up, because we don't know exactly when we're going to start putting in these wayfinding signs. But we're wrapping up that part as well, so that this fall we'll have a actual design that we can start to put in the ground. So that'll all be coming together finally.
Hopefully they'll go with the one that 90% of the people seem to like on the wayfinding, with the coquina, with the little wave action going. And
I think we're there with a wave.
like the wave. Okay.
I don't know if it's a little jumping ahead of myself here, but with the ISD streetscape, and I don't really see too many people in here from this east side. Are they aware of the ridiculous irrigation issues we have with drainage on the ISD east side? I'm just curious if you guys ever brought that to your attention.
No. What's
Anytime it rains, we get about 3 to 4 feet of water for about 15 to 20 minutes, right about at the street corner. Yeah,
the flooding right at Grandview?
it's really bad.
Okay. Is it getting into the ISB corridor or just around the corner?
It's getting into pretty much like right about Subway, and we'll have some cars hit that unit about, 45 and 50, and they'll slam on the brakes real hard.
Okay.
Rolling into public comments then? Randy, was that yours?
Good for me.
Carrie? Matt? Tim? Teresa? Okay. Suzanne? I'm good to go too. Thank you all very much. Not quite.
Thank you.
It was
And
because-
Reed's on the way across the
It was because
state.
of you this time.
What's that?
It was because of you this time.
No.
With all 6 inches of the parking spaces.
Oh, yeah, because I spent so much time, yeah.
That was me.